Hey guys, so here is part 1 of the lesson 9 notes. We're going to be talking about writing functions in both exponential and as power functions. So remember, exponential functions are going to be in the form of y equals a times b to the x. So your variable x is going to be in the exponent spot, while power functions is y equals a times x to the b. So in this case, with power functions, x is a base. Okay, so make sure you know the difference between those two. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about how do we write either exponential or power functions when given 2 points. So here it says write an exponential function. Now notice it tells you what the form is, so use that to your advantage. So write an exponential function in the form of y equals a times b to the x, whose graph passes through 112 and 108. Okay, so the first step that we need to do is use the points and write them in the form of y equals a times b to the x. So we got our x and y, x and y. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to plug our points into the x and y. The goal is to solve for a and b because they are going to be values. So using the first point, 1 and 12, I have 12 equals a times b to the first power. When I use 3 and 108, then my function is 108 equals a times b to the third. Okay, second step. What we're going to do is divide these two functions and solve for b. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take the function that has the higher exponent. So this is the 108 equals a times b to the third, and that's going to be on top of my fraction here. So whichever b has the higher exponent, that goes in the numerator. The other one goes into the denominator. Now we go ahead and divide. So we do 108 divided by 12. Of course, you can just plug that into your calculator. So we do 108 divided by 12, and that gives us 9. Okay, so we get 9 equals, now notice what happens to the a's. They cancel out. So now b, all we have to do here is go ahead and use our exponent rule. So if I have b cubed divided by b to the first, that should give me b squared. Now, I still need to solve for b. So to undo that square, we square root. And then here we're going to get b equals 3. Now, the next step that we're going to do is solve for a. So how we're going to solve for a is we're going to take our b value and we're going to plug it into one of the two functions. Now, you get to choose because, you'll get the same value. But I'm going to take my 3 and plug it into the easier of the two functions. That's going to be the first one. So here, I have 12 equals a times 3 to the first power. Now I go ahead and solve for my a. Well, 3 to the first is just 3. So I have 12 equals 3a. Now I divide both sides by 3. And so my a is equal to 4. So now that I have a b and an a value, my last step, and make sure you don't forget this step, is to actually write the exponential function. Like that's the goal here, okay? So don't forget that very important last step. And when we write our exponential function, don't forget, guys, that we're going to have to use our variables. So we're going to have y equals, our a is 4, then we have 3, and it's raised to the x. Now, be careful. Do not do 4 times 3. Remember, you cannot do that. So the exponent's with the 3, so we can't multiply 4 and 3. So it's just 4 times 3 to the x power. Okay, let's try another example like this. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do is go ahead and pause the video and try example 2 on your own. Okay, let's see how you guys did. So once again, we're going to write an exponential function, y equals a times b to the x, whose graph passes through 2, 8, and 32. Okay, so remember, this is our function we're going to write in. First step, is to use our points and plug those values into x and y. So here I have 8 equals a times b squared, and my other one, 32, equals a times b cubed. Second step is to solve for b. So to do that, I'm going to divide here. So I'm going to take the one with the higher exponent, which is cubed, put that on top. So 32 equals a times b cubed, all over 8 equals a times b squared. Now I need to simplify this. So when I do 32 divided by 8. That is just going to give me my 4 here. So I get my 4, and then remember my a's cancel here. Now, when I do b cubed divided by b squared, well, notice that my exponents subtract, so that just gives me b. So I really don't need to do anything else because b is now all by itself. Okay, step 3 is now to solve for a. So remember how we're going to solve for a is to plug in our b value into one of the two equations. Remember, I'm going to choose the easier of the two because, of course, that just makes it easier. So I'm going to have 8 equals a times 4 squared. So I go and evaluate that. So I get 8 equals a times 16. I'm going to divide everything by 16. And so my a is going to equal 1/2. Okay, don't forget the very last step, which is very important. You have to write the function. And in this case, because they told us to write an exponential, that's what we're going to do. So write the exponential function. So my final answer here is going to be y equals, don't forget to use your variables here, 1/2 is my a times my b of 4, and then to the x power. And remember, we do not multiply our a and b because that will not give us the same answer. So that's it. Okay, so now let's talk about how do we do this for power functions. So now we're going to talk about write a power function y equals a times x to the b whose graph passes through 3, 2, and 6, 9. So now we're doing power functions. So be careful when they ask you which one to use. Now we're going to kind of follow the same steps. So the first step that we're going to do is actually write the two functions using the 2 points they give to us. So here, my first point is 3, 2. My y value is 2 equals a. Now, I have an x as a base. That's going to be my 3. So I have 3 to the b power. And then my other one, I'm going to have 9 equals a times 6 is my x, 6 to the b. So be careful on where you're plugging in your values, okay? Now, second step, once again, we are going to divide the functions and solve for b. So when we did the last examples, basically we wanted the function that had the higher exponent on top. In this case, we want the function with the higher base to be on top. So my second equation has a base of 6. That's going to be on top of my fraction here. So I'm going to have 9 equals a times 6 to the b power. And that's going to be over 2 equals a times 3 to the b power. Okay. Now, from here, once again, I'm going to divide and cancel. So 9 divided by 2 gives me 4.5. The a's cancel. Now let's talk about what this happens here. So this is now going back to when we talked about our exponent rules. So remember, notice we have 6 to the b over 3 to the b. Now 6 and 3 are different bases, but using one of our exponent rules, remember, notice they both have the same exponent. So what I can do is reverse that process using my exponent property. So now I have 6 divided by 3 raised to the b power. Remember, this property is where we distribute our exponent to all the terms. Now I can go ahead and do 6 divided by 3 to give me 2, and it's raised to the b power. So that's what I have here. Now, in the last two examples, all we had to do was undo the exponent. Well, notice that my exponent here is b. So how we're going to solve for this one here is actually use how we solve for exponentials. So my next step here is I'm going to have to rewrite this in in logarithmic form. So I'm going to have log base 2. Okay, so I start from the base, I go to my outer and go to the inner. So I'm going to have log base 2 of 4.5 equals b. Now to get my b, I'm going to use my change of base formula. So that's going to be log of 4.5 divided by log of 2. Now, this is where I go ahead and plug this into my calculator. And so for our sake, we're going to round to 2 decimal places because that's usually how we round to. So when I do that, I'm going to have my log. So log of 4.5, make sure you close off that parentheses, divided by log of 2. So this is all stuff that you have already learned before. So we get about 2.17 if we round. So that's going to be my B value. So 2.17. Now, third step, as we've been doing, we're going to solve for A. So we're going to take, once again, our B value. We're going to take 2.17 and plug it into one of the 2 functions. Once again, it does not matter because you'll get the same answer, but I'm going to plug it in where the base is a little bit smaller, or the values, both of them are smaller. So I'm going to plug it into my first function here. So I have 2 equals A times 3, and remember, I'm plugging 2.7 into my B, so that's the exponent. Okay. Now from here, to get A all by itself, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by this 3 raised to the 2.17 power. The reason I'm doing this all at the same time is because if I go ahead and calculate 3 to the 2.17 power and then round back to 2 decimal places, I'm not really going to have the best approximation there. So I'm going to try to make this as close as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and plug more exact values into my calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and do my 2 divided by that. So you do 2 divided by 3, and then you just use your caret key to be raised to the 2.17 power. And then once again, we're going to round to 2 decimal places, so we get about 0.18, and that's my A value. Now, just like as we did before, okay, so for our last step, remember, you got to write the function. So here I get y equals, our A value is 0.18. Remember, our base is x this time, and then my b is the exponent, so 2.17. And then that is my power function. Okay, let's look at the next example. Now, once again, what I would like you guys to do is go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, let's see what you guys did. So first, we go ahead and write our equations. So I have 2 equals my A. My x is 2 as well, so 2 to the b power. And then I try for my 416. So I have 16 equals A times 4 to the b power. Okay, step 2 is to solve for b. Don't forget that we are going to take the one with the higher base and put that on top for our fraction. Okay, here I do 16 divided by 2. That gives me 8. The a's cancel. Now remember here that I'm going to use my exponent rule. And so that allows me to put the 4 and 2 together. I divide these two. So 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. And that'll give me 2 to the b power. Now, I'm not done because remember, what I'm going to have to do here is in order to solve for b, I'm going to have to rewrite this in logarithmic form to do so. So I have log, our base here is 2, because that is the base of our exponential. We go to the outer, which is 8, and then equal to b. Now I go ahead and use my change of base formula. So b equals log of 8 over log of 2. And when I plug that in, and some of you may already have seen or know what this is going to give us. So I divide that, it should give us 3. So my b value here is 3. Okay, now I'm going to solve for a. So once again, I'm going to take my b value and plug it into one of the 2 functions in my first step. I'm going to plug it into my first equation or function just because the values are smaller. So when I do that, I have 2 equals a times 2 to the 3rd power. Well, 2 to the 3rd is 8, so this one I can calculate because I don't get decimals. So then I'm going to have 2 equals 8a. divide everything by 8. So that means my a value as a reduced fraction is 1/4. And remember, the fourth step is always to write the function. And so my function is going to be y equals, our a is 1/4. Now remember, our base is x, and then my b value is the exponent 3. So that's going to be my power function. Okay, so that is the end of part 1 of the lesson 9 notes, writing exponential and power functions. Make sure you watch the second part of the lesson 9 notes.